So this is going on for me personally, going on 20 years. In just 2 years, it'll be 20 for me. And during that time, I've done many things with my partners and my colleagues in ministry. I like to say this, even though I'm the only staff person for Advance Ministries, a lot of people would not be able to observe that. You know it, and you have an inside perspective, but I do everything with other partners, other volunteers from our church and from other ministries and other full-timers and many people from other local churches. So when I do something, it's never just Scott Cherry doing something or Advanced Ministries doing something. It's never just that. It's always Scott and 7 other people, or Scott and 15 other people. Advanced Ministries with Great Commission Ministries and with Christar and with Pioneers and local Christians from local churches who want to plug in to do things. I've just recently been having these discussions with some members of the church that we belong to, which is Dearborn Evangelical Covenant Church, and we were discussing. I was trying to explain when something is an Advanced Ministries thing, and when it's not an Advanced Ministries thing, when it's a Scott Cherry thing, or when it's just a thing, a project that all the Christians want to get together and participate in. And I'm going to show you some pictures, I hope, in a few minutes of some examples, because it's not really very important to me to say that something is an Advanced Ministries project or an Advanced Ministries activity, because why? It's God's project. It's God's activity. It's the people of God. It's the, sometimes we call it God's team. And it's all of us in different capacities who care about Muslims, who love Muslims, who give special attention to them and learn much, much more about what they believe and how they believe it and why they believe it and how it's different from Christianity and from what the Bible teaches. It's people collaborating. And so there's another word I like is confluence. There's a lot of confluence together, like when streams come together. And it's important to me and to our ministry to be able to facilitate, plan, and organize these kinds of events when it's not important to stick an Advanced Ministries label to it. And therefore, some people wonder and ask, well, is that an Advanced Ministries project and activity? And often the answer is yes and no. No in the sense that any of the the community cannot recognize it as an Advanced Ministries outreach, and that's the way I like it. And sometimes even the participants in our outreach activities cannot tell, but they don't care. As long as we're all doing God's work together, we're spreading the gospel, we're engaging with Muslim people face to face, in love, but also boldness and willing to, get into the weeds about many of the details of the doctrines and the propositions of our salvation. Okay, I mean, the gospel has propositions, and it's important for us to believe, yes, that Jesus died on the cross. This is non-negotiable. That he rose again from the dead. that he came to save sinners, and that there's something about a sinner who has repented that is very valuable to God. You know, he rejoices over sinners who repent, rather than just if he could find righteous people. And Jesus taught on this. And so one of the advantages we have in the Christian faith is we have this rich resource of Jesus's teachings and also his apostles. We have the four gospels, and then we have the many epistles. And the Muslims don't have this. Although they esteem Jesus, they regard him highly, maybe not as highly as they say, but to them he's a great prophet. But there's such a tiny amount of information in the Quran about what Jesus said and did. It's a small, tiny fraction of what the Bible gives to the world about what Jesus said and did. And that's wonderful and fantastic. All right, so I'm going to show you this slideshow, and I hope this is going to illustrate and pictorialize what I've been talking about, because there are people in this slideshow that you don't know and you may never know, because they're people that I have invited into our activities. Now, in general, these photos show two broad categories of ministry that are very important and prominent spheres of ministry for Advance. There are lots of pictures from the parks. That's the one category. We've been doing a lot of open air park ministry, especially since the summer of 2020. And for even a longer period of time, we have been doing campus ministry, reaching Muslims on the campus of U of M Dearborn and at Henry Ford College, and sometimes Wayne State. And Wayne State was a more important zone of ministry in the past than it is now. It's hard to be everywhere, as much as I would like to try to be everywhere. I guess I decided that Wayne State is better left in the hands of other Christians working there and other Christian ministries working there. But at U of M Dearborn, that's a picture here of, for example, I'm not going to talk about every picture, but it happens this is the first one, and this is at U of M Dearborn, and there's obviously a Muslim young lady who's a student there, and this is Brian Harmon. Brian works for Open Air Campaigners, and his father is, I don't know, maybe well known too. His name is Tom, and his father Tom does lots of men's retreats. But Brian and his small number of staff go around to various university campuses, and they do a specific type of open air. You could call it preaching, but really it's more like open air talking, and they use watercolor paints on an easel. Well, the point here is that on this occasion, I invited Brian and his two partners that day to come to U of M Dearborn, and it was in the fall. It was probably September, and I asked them to use their special craft in our zone, in our ministry context, to help us to engage with Muslim students. And I was there today too. I was remember, Jill, when you and I and Sue Hanstead went around to all the bulletin boards, pinning flyers up everywhere about 2 years ago? Well, I was doing that again today, as an aside, because I have a student organization there. I founded a Christian club, which we call Faith and Reason. It has a longer name, but for short, we call it Faith and Reason. And so we have a permanent, legitimate presence there through this particular student organization. We could ask the same thing. Is it a part of Advance Ministries? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, because I founded it. I wrote the Constitution. Other students helped me do it. But really, it's independent. It's autonomous, and I can't really tell them what to do. But they like my advice, thankfully. And and so the president today created a flyer, and we went and pinned 150 flyers all over. Well, because the U of M university is important to us, and reaching the Muslims especially, and that's what these photos show. So Brian was there on hand with us today. Let's see if, here we go. Okay, you recognize anybody in this picture? That day, Dave Wood was with us. By the way, if you have questions along the way, feel free to unmute yourself and ask me any questions, okay? So sometimes I'm not gonna say anything at all, just because I think I have like 70 pictures, or at least 50. We make banners that we tape to the edge of tables when we do outdoor campus evangelism, especially in the fall when the students come back and it's still warm out. And we hope that these banners will be provocative and pique the curiosity of Muslim students. And it works with non-Muslims too. But this happens to be a question that many Muslims often kind of throw out in a Christian conversation. Where does Jesus say, I am God? It's very standard. It's like off the shelf. It's, but surprisingly, not all Christians can answer this question. Well, the point of this banner, though, is not only to have the conversation, that's part of the purpose, but as you can see, I'm trying to invite students into a one-on-one or a small group Bible study. Using, here I call them the sacred texts. They're the Bible, they're the gospel. And actually these banners work, and flyers like it work when we pin them to all the bulletin boards everywhere. It's not unusual to get 1 or 2 phone calls. I wish it were, 20 or 30, but 1 or 2 phone calls or text messages from Muslims that say, yeah, I want to do this. I want to have this discussion. I've always been wanting to learn the gospel or the Bible better. And yeah, why is it that Christians believe that Jesus is God? And so there are sincere Muslims. There's a new Muslim young man who is attending our weekly meetings of Faith and Reason, and so far he shows a lot of promise. He's only 17, maybe 18 now, and I just saw him yesterday. And I don't know why he comes, really, because it's kind of unusual for a Muslim. It's not unusual for them to visit our meeting, but it's unusual for a Muslim to come every week. And it shows something more than with I don't know, standard Muslim students. This young man, he is engaged. He is interested in what we Christians are talking about. He knows he's the only Muslim. It doesn't bother him whatsoever. And he's really a delightful guy. And another one that I was talking with today, this Muslim young man was 18 when I met him at Wayne State. So 14 years ago, I met Abe, and at Wayne State, our very first conversations were very vigorous and have always been vigorous. And recently he agreed to read the Gospel of Mark. I challenged him. I said, I dare you to read the Gospel of Mark, and then we can talk about it. And he said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And in the very same day, he read the Gospel of Mark. And I said, well, maybe you read it too fast. So he said, okay, I'll read it again. And by the next day, he had read the Gospel of Mark twice, and then the deep and vigorous discussions ensued. A lot of these can happen by text message or by Facebook message, and that's how it goes. So let me keep going through these photos. These happen to be two brothers, not brothers to each other, but brothers in the Lord. And I think you know one of him too, one of them, don't you? The one on the right goes to your church. His name is Aso. And I hope that you have been, I mean, I know Ward is a big church and you don't meet everybody. And it's possible not to meet somebody ever at Ward, perhaps. But Aso goes to your church and his younger brother, and they are Kurdish believers from Syria. And now, I mean, I think they've been going to Ward for 7 or 8 years. And then I made a mistake. Aso and his brother Ari are not from Syria, they're from Iraq, the Kurdish area of Iraq. And the one on the left is another Iraqi believer from a Muslim background, but he's from Baghdad. And they're friends. And Aso comes to our church quite often, actually. When we have special dinners, and we invite lots of Muslim people to our special dinners, Aso is sure to come, and Wissam will often come. But that picture is taken at the new Yasmin Bakery, where every Tuesday morning we have a men's prayer meeting at a house in my neighborhood, and then we go to the bakery, and sometimes Aso is there, sometimes Wissam is there, and so on. I don't have time to tell you about him. He's a super interesting character. His name is Muhammad. Oh, well, let me play that.
We cannot hear him, Scott.
Well, I know it doesn't matter so much what he says. I'm not, and it will take too long. So there's another guy you like. Now, this is a little girl who lives on my block, and that's my dog. The kids love my dog. The dog is named Zorro. And the interesting thing about living in an Arab neighborhood is there are way more kids than you have in perhaps white suburban neighborhoods. Kids everywhere. And a lot of Arab families don't have pets, and especially dogs, and they're afraid of them, but they respect German Shepherds. It's very interesting how much, if they have a dog, they're going to have a German Shepherd because they're tough watchdogs. And the kids just are magnetized to him. So the kids stream over to my house every other day in the summertime, and I don't have to do much to get their attention. All I have to do is take Zorro for a walk, and the kids are following me like the Pied Piper. It's great. And I had a birthday party for Zorro in October. I don't know if it was his birthday at all, but I called it his birthday and invited all the kids. I made flyers and I gave them to one kid, and I said, we're having a birthday party for Zorro. Take these to all the other kids. And he did. So that night I had, I don't know, 16 of the neighbor kids. And I had an inflatable movie screen in my backyard, a big 20-foot movie screen. And I showed episodes of something called Superbook, Christian cartoons that are on YouTube. And one Muslim boy named Mustafa said, he's sitting there right in front of the screen, and he said, we're not allowed to watch this. These are Christian movies. And I said, well, I mean, this is Jesus. Don't you love Jesus? And he said, oh yeah, we love Jesus. And then he just turned his head back to the movie and continued watching it. And so there was that concern for a moment, but he didn't leave. So I'm always trying to, interface with the kids and ask the kids to introduce me to their parents. This is my block. This is my front lawn and my dog. And there's some other kids with him. Now these are from the park. There's Wissam again, and I think I don't think you know the other people, but each person is from a different church. The one on the far right is Larry Pega. He goes to Cornerstone EPC, and so we have several. Larry and several other people would come every week or every other week, all the way from Brighton, to do park ministry. And again, we would set up a table with interesting books, some of them in Arabic, and we would sometimes just wait for Muslim people to come to us and say, what is this about? Are you selling these books? And then we say, no, they're free. These the guy on the left is the same guy is in this picture in the middle, but the two guys on the right are from our local church, Dearborn Covenant Church. The pastor's son in the middle, and another young man who used to be, where he actually worked with us on the campus of U of M for some years. Kids in my backyard. There's me and a Muslim guy I barely even knew at the closest park to us, Ford Woods Park. Some of these pictures are even from a show that I think I showed last time. And so I use these little images to show that, yeah, our local church is very important. It's a place of ministry. And so is our block in our neighborhood. So is the campus that I've talked about and the parks. And a place that I haven't talked about is Lava Java, which is an Arab Muslim hookah lounge. And we have had 5 Christian movie nights at this Muslim hookah lounge. It's the strangest thing ever, because first of all, who has a Christian evangelism event in a hookah lounge? And if you don't know what hookah is, it's those long hoses that they use that are, you might think of a bong. Many Arab Muslims love to smoke fruity flavored tobacco out of a big glass jar with a hose connected to it and water in it. Just like a bong used to work, I guess, except they only smoke tobacco in there. And I'm on such good terms with the manager and the owner at Lava Java that as long as he's making money, he loves to have our 40 Christians and the Muslims we invite. Plus the Muslims who happen to be there anyway are going to enjoy our program. So on December 21st, for example, we had a Christmas party there, and we showed movies on their huge 10-foot TV, and we had a live Arabic band. There may be some pictures coming up. Here are 2 of the musicians. One of them, again, on the right is Wissam again. Wissam from Baghdad. Oh, there's Lava Java skating through the outside of Lava Java, and inside There's David, who was just playing the flute, waving. And the man on the right and the woman in the middle, they're married, and they're also from Iraq, and they're also believers from a Muslim background. Now, David waving at you is from a Catholic background. He became a born-again, gospel believer, Christian, and he goes to our church, and so does this other couple go to our church, because we know how to treat Arab Muslim people in our church. We love on them and embrace them and disciple them, and we know how to make them feel at home. That's me, and on the right is the owner of Lava Java. Now here's me and another young man at the park, another one of the faithful and more active park evangelists. There's Lava Java. Oh, these two young guys, see these two young guys smiling at you and thumbing up you there? They are also Iraqi, and they're much younger. This is Muhammad and Ahmed, and they became Christians through a series of events, and they also go to our church. Although they also get around quite a bit. They visit lots of other people's churches. They're very sociable, and they go all over the place. Now, the guy in the sitting there closest to you is John Frazier, and he's the secretary of our board of directors. Our board of directors has now 6 people, including Dave Wood, who's the chairman, and John Frazier, who's the secretary, and then some other people I don't think are in the pictures. There's our church, some pictures of inside. This is the room where I teach Sunday school every Sunday morning, and I'm always trying to invite Muslims and students. So the young man in the middle was a student at Henry Ford College who was already a Christian, and he was super interested in apologetics and what our church was all about. So he joined our church. And then on the left is another board member. I was wrong. Here's another board member. That's Wayne. This is another couple from our church, and they're very active in campus ministry. And the woman on the right, this is Mirela. She's from Albania, and she was from a Muslim family in Albania, and she became a believer in Albania when she was a teenager. And then they met online, and they got married, and they're super valuable assets to our campus ministry and to our park ministry activities. You recognize that as The Chosen. The Chosen was the series that we received permission to show at Lava Java and in the parks when we were showing open air movies in the parks. Because last summer, every Tuesday night, we would rent the shelter at Hemlock Park and then blow up that huge 20-foot movie screen and show episodes of The Chosen. But also we had popcorn and hot dogs and live music. And it really goes over well. You might recognize that as the mosque very, very close to where I live. Lava Java on the inside. Again, too many pictures of my dog. This is another little flyer that we created to do evangelism. This was another question that came up in some discussions. Some Muslims think that Isaiah 42 prophesies Muhammad. So I created this little postcard. Does Isaiah 42 talk about Muhammad? To find out, we invite you to personally meet up for an up-close examination of this text. Reply to this post or text me. David, Lava Java. Now this young man with me is a Lebanese Muslim, but he's not really a Muslim. He is really not interested in Islam at all. And he's actually a particular type of, profile. He was a student at U of M Dearborn when I met him. He's from a Muslim family, but he could care less about Islam. In fact, he is critical of Islam, like some are. When you peel away some of the layers, you find this out. He actually is way more interested and way more impressed with Christianity. And we did many multiple Bible studies together before he graduated. Now I stay in touch with him, and he was here at Lava Java. Another student on the right, his name is Ozair. He's Pakistani. He is just the opposite of the young man I just described. He's very hard-headed. He's very polemical, hard to talk to him. So I kind of left him alone for a while. I think that's all the pictures in this particular slideshow, and maybe that's good enough for now. If any of you have any comments or questions, this is the time.
Scott, I was wondering, when was your last Lava Java event? Was it the one at Christmas?
Yeah, December 21st.
Yeah, and then when you have the people watching that, is there some kind of follow-up you try to do with people who attend, or how do you use that?
Yeah, the beautiful thing for me is that I go there often enough that I can follow up with them just naturally and spontaneously. Well, in my mind, when I host these events, and when my partners help me to do it, much of the audience, or perhaps the bullseye of the target audience, are the staff and the owner himself.
Oh.
They're there, they're working. They don't know that I'm doing this for them. They think we're just bringing in all our own Christian friends, and it's just for us Christians. No, it's not that way, really. It's for them. And I know that I'm going to be able to see them the next time, and the next time, and the next time. And then there's all the regulars that I talked about. Again, we kind of rent, to do this, we rent about half of the whole entire restaurant. We get the privileges to set up that half the way we want, and to show movies and to have the live music. But we don't tell the regulars that they can't come. In fact, yeah, they can come, and they can even have some of our food, because we get a buffet. This event costs $1,500, at least the way that we have done it recently. And I know that the regulars, because they're regular, are going to come again and come again, and I'm going to see them, and I'm going to be able to have conversations with them in their own place, and I don't even have to plan it.
Scott, how can we pray for you?
You can pray for an awakening. We want and we need an awakening among the Muslim community, within the Muslim community, so that hundreds more will have an insatiable appetite for the gospel and the Christian message, and to know Christ as their Lord and Savior. It's you've heard this analogy before of the farmers before they create their field. They have to go through and pick out all the rocks. And sometimes that's exactly how it feels to us, to go through the field and pick out all the rocks. And of course, we're looking for those that are most receptive to the gospel message. But it's one by one. It really is mostly one by one by one, and we want some call it a movement. We might think of it as uh, a whole community-wide response to the gospel, and to begin to in dozens go through the doors of our local church. For example, other local churches that are preaching the gospel where they can hear the Bible. And then one particular prayer request is for the next summer's schedule of outreach activities. I just wrote an email today to the recreation director. I'm kind of nervous that now, since we have a Muslim mayor and he has a whole bunch of new Muslim cabinet members, I'm nervous that they're not going to let us do all the types of park evangelism that we enjoyed last summer and the summer before that. Maybe I'm just wrong in the first place, but anyway, we want God's favor so that when I begin, giving him the dates that we want and signing forms and spelling out details, we want the freedom and God's favor to continue to be able to do these open air gospel, proclamations with all their different components.
I know you have been doing working in the colleges prior to COVID, and are the colleges open now for you to set up book tables?
Yeah, they are. Now, thankfully, in September, they opened up wide, and they had rules and restrictions and on-site vaccinations and all the rest of the stuff. But we had free reign to set up our evangelism tables outside on the lawn. We usually would pick the same place, and twice or three times a week up through November, we were doing outdoor evangelism, even after it started getting chilly. And yeah, so many students are eager, or at least willing, to stop and talk about what they really believe and what God's standards are and so on. The population of students is way down. It's today I estimated that it has to be less than 50%, because many classes are online classes, and students can choose to take them online or come to the campus physically. But thankfully now, the buildings are open. We can do some of the same things indoors, although there are special rules for the inside that we don't have to follow on the outside. And for example, one thing we're working on now, just starting today, this was a text message today between the president of the student organization and me. We want to have that Arabic band come into the university center and play on the stage, and then we'll have our literature all set up all around. Student organizations have the privileges of being able to make reservations and to organize events indoors, and that's one of the beautiful advantages of being affiliated with a student organization. Because by myself, I could go into any building and talk to anybody, but I couldn't organize any event without being a part of a student organization.
As we bring this to a close, if any of our members, we will have about 30 people that will view this on Sunday evening. If any of our members are interested in participating with you, can we refer them to you?
Yes, I want you to do that. I would love to have ward people connect to me, and I can show them the ropes and I can take them around like I did with Jill and Sue. And even more, we can plan events and activities, especially for a group of ward people or even one or two. There's so many ways to plug them in, and depending on what time of year it is, especially in the summer, there are so many ways that they can kind of get their feet wet and even just explore the community. And I wish you would do that.